Okay. Thanks everybody for being here and welcome. I am your host for the College Admissions for Trans Students webinar, and I'm delighted that you're here. The most important thing that I can say as we get started is that as a fellow parent of a trans student, I do understand the excitement, the enthusiasm, and also the concerns that can go along with this. So what you're going to get tonight is going to include sort of an intersection of emotional support, psychological recommendations, and tactical suggestions, along with data from which you can make some informed decisions. So I trust this will be helpful. As we get started, here's just a little bit about me. I am an admissions specialist. I have been for over 20 years. I have founded several educational services companies. So I do offer one-on-one support. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to share a lot of free information. But if you decide you want one-on-one support, please know that I have a staff of approximately 22 tutors, college admissions professionals, and then myself as the founder. And we do a good job of making sure students get where they're going. And what we're going to cover tonight is going to be trans specific, but is also going to incorporate decades of expertise. So there's a little bit about me. So let's start with my favorite topic. Please meet Archie. This is my son. I have 3 kids. My first 2 are cis. And Archie is currently 22. Archie was assigned female at birth, now identifies as transmasculine and non-binary, prefers he, but will tolerate they as a pronoun. And I will mention that we're going to talk a little bit tonight about neurodivergence, because a fair proportion of our kids are not only trans, but may have some type of learning difference, some type of neurodivergence. In Archie's case, that includes ADHD, and that also includes autism, high functioning, and yet I assure you, definitely autistic, and in a beautiful way, because this neurodivergence is actually a gift. This is, I really believe, a superpower that my kid has. And I'm so happy that we can all really embrace and love our kids as they introduce themselves to us. When Archie came out at 15, there was bullying. We actually pulled him out of school because, we were in Los Angeles. I thought it was going to be, this wonderful, safe place, but yeah, I can tell you, it was not such a welcoming environment. Things worked out better in the end, and I'll share that toward the end of the webinar. But those social adaptations are challenges that we have personally been through, and I'm sure that some of you can relate. Anyway, that's a little bit about Archie. Let's talk about, as we get started, just some data points. This is according to the most recent UCLA Institute's data. So the Williams Institute there really focuses on social sciences, and they focus on this type of topic. You can see links at the bottom that you'll be able to access on your own. I always try to give you references so you can confirm and take a deeper dive into anything I'm going to be presenting tonight. But this idea of, how many, well, according to them, about 300,000. I would guess the number is probably quite a bit higher than that, but that's what they are confirming. And many of our students do need gender affirming care. That is a topic we will certainly talk about tonight. About 45% of these kids are living in states where that care has been confronted by discrimination in the laws and in the policies. So I've got a map for you. I literally have created a list for you of colleges of all different tiers. So this is going to be less selective, moderately selective, highly selective schools that I recommend that you potentially consider for your son or daughter if you feel that you are trying to build a list where you can have confidence that they will be safe and have a community where they can really thrive. I do think that it's important as I go to the map that we think about this is constantly in flux and in motion. So today we can say, oh, I feel really good. I'm sending my student to a state where there are protections, but we've seen just in the last 6 months movement and changes. And remember that undergraduate is typically at least a 4-year degree. So, we really want to be cautious and tactical as we build these lists and make our decisions about where we want to invest our hard-earned dollars for our kids' higher education, right? So we want to make sure that they have access to what they need. So the Human Rights Campaign created this map. And again, it is in flux all the time. I was asking right before we began, who's from different states, and we've got a really nice, cross section of this map right here in this webinar. With that said, as you can see, there are large swaths of the country. It was interesting. One gentleman said that he was in Minnesota, but in an area that perhaps is more red. And then we've got somebody with us tonight from Austin, Texas, who is sitting as a little dollop of blue in a big red state. So we know that this is never unilateral, but in terms of gender affirming care, this is what's happening in the states. And of course, whether it is a state institution that your student is applying to or a private college or university, they are going to be beholden to the regulatory policies and limitations that are in that local area. So we're going to start by talking about criteria. Feel free to screenshot this slide. When my staff and I help build a student's list, we go through a series of criteria, and on the left, you can see just some of those areas that we check in with a student to get clarity. Obviously, not all schools offer all majors. So the first thing to know is that a lot of teenagers will hear about a school, get it in their mind, they want to go there, and they haven't even considered whether that school offers a major that could be of interest to them. Ultimately, this is not a social club. This is an academic enterprise that they're going into college. So we don't want to miss the forest for the trees as we're talking about the things in the right-hand column, which we absolutely are going to address in this webinar, without considering the things on the left hand, right? Are they interested in Greek life? I have a slide for you on fraternities and sororities that are LGBTQIA plus friendly. You want to be able to have clarity about how liberal or conservative, right? The political leanings, the religious backgrounds, and sometimes requirements of some of these schools. If that's not a fit for your student, you want to, tap the brakes. But but in addition to all of that, our kiddos also have to consider physical safety, available health care. For students who are able to get pregnant, we have to consider, is there a right to affordable abortion in that state? And if not, do you feel that you could navigate that if that person ended up in that situation? Appropriate housing. Is this a school that is going to allow a student who is assigned male at birth to be in an all-male dorm, or is there going to be pushback on that? Bathroom access to match the identity of the student. The community, the clubs and organizations on campus, but then also what's around the campus, because some of the schools that I did not include on the list I'm going to share with you, they have a lovely enclave on the campus, but they're still surrounded by an area where there's very little opportunity. So if you see, like, why isn't this school or why isn't that school there? That is part of the methodology that I applied when putting together the list. It's important that, especially for 4 long years, you don't want them only being able to be on the quad throwing Frisbee with aligned friends. You want them to be able to be out in the community. And that is something that has come into consideration here. All right, so that is some criteria for building a schools list. And, this is really both an art and a science. We want to acknowledge the fact that mental health is absolutely going to need to be top of mind for all of us. When we talk about the safety of our student, we're not just talking about harm from others, but also harm within the student themselves. I have personally experienced this. So mental health for our kiddos is something that I really respect the Trevor Project for addressing in very clear terms. This link that I'm sharing is one that I do recommend that you take a look at. I am not sharing this slide to scare anybody. I don't think I'm telling you something that we don't already pretty much know. That 988 number should be top of mind for you and your son or daughter. That is a very important emergency line. It is a suicide and crisis helpline. And did you know you can text? Because a lot of kids don't want to call, but if they know they can put in 988 and just text, and on the other end of that text is going to be a trained professional who can help them if they're struggling with their mental health. I so appreciate that that is an easy resource that we can all take away from this. 988, right? That is the emergency number. We can see in the stats on the board here, these come directly from the Trevor Project website, that, you know, the mental health is directly proportionate to what they're seeing in the culture. And we are part of the change that we want to see in the world by shifting that culture. And that's why I'm coming forward as a professional in my field to try to do my part, because this should not be as opaque as it is. I'm really looking to lift the veil and be very transparent with you about the college admissions process so that you have access to knowledge that is typically privatized today. We're living in late stage capitalism, I'm sure you're aware. And so this idea of everything being for sale to the highest bidder, especially when we're talking about our youth and our vulnerable youth, is really pretty abhorrent to me. So let's consider the fact, okay, these are some stats, but that doesn't mean we need to despair, because the great news is, and I know everybody wants this slide, because look at this, 150 colleges and universities currently cover both hormones and surgeries for transitioning students. Now think about that. That is a wonderful boon for the student. So hormones and gender affirming surgeries are covered with the student health care. And then another 28 will cover the hormones, even if they don't do the surgery, which may be a fit for some students who don't plan to have any kind of surgery, but they just really want their testosterone, or they want to have other types of hormonal support. So here you can see Campus Pride. I'm certain most of us know campuspride.org, but take a look at this link where you can learn about student health insurance and exactly which schools are those that are offering that, right? You get a thumbs up on that, right? That's like a woo, yes. Because if you think, college is expensive, try adding healthcare on top of that and everything else, right? So we really want to be realists about what it costs and what we can't really risk letting go of when it comes to our students. So we mentioned a little earlier the topic of neurodiversity. And so I'm now going to share very briefly on that. I know this doesn't apply to every trans student, but it applies to many trans students. And just even by way of sensitizing ourselves to the conversation for others who are part of our community, I encourage everybody just to take a peek at some of this. So there is an intersection between neurodiversity and gender identity. And the information that you see on this slide, I'm certainly not going to read out loud or anything like that. But again, feel free to screenshot, feel free to ask questions on this. It's important that we think about how we describe, how we use language. We talk quite a bit about pronouns, and those are very important, that we respect one another's pronouns. But neurodiversity is a much softer, kinder, more accurate word or phrase or label that we can assign to a student. When I talk about my son, I'm not saying my autistic son with ADHD. I'm saying my son who is neurodiverse. I have a neurodiverse son. Yes, those are some diagnoses that are in place, but that is not a label that I personally, and this is maybe if somebody else feels differently, that's okay. But I do not want my child to walk through life feeling in any way second-class citizen because of the gift of neurodiversity, which actually makes them a very creative thinker, artist, stand-up comedian, songwriter, like all the things, right? Who knows if they would be able to do those things without the neurodiversity. So I do want you to keep in mind, and look at that last bullet. Non-binary experience is common. So it's not always, trans, within the binary. Sometimes it is non-binary. And again, this is directly correlated in many cases between neurodiversity and gender identity. So understanding that and what to do about that means that the college that you decide upon needs to have both a trans inclusive culture and student services to support the neurodivergence. So those are two separate criteria that you want to make sure you have in your mind as that list is being built. That is something that I kept in mind as I built the list of colleges that you're going to see in a little bit. So definitely stick around for that. We just want to remember that trans-friendly and student services in terms of accommodations and other types of support that a student may want and need those are two separate things. And some colleges have this and not that. Some have that and not this. We're looking for this and that in a single university. And so that is the goal. So as we think about all of the neurodivergence and the other sort of criteria that we've talked about, I'm now going to go through some very tactical things that I want every parent here to hear and to really take as action items. So this is where, if we want to call these, here comes your marching orders, here they come, right? These are the things that parents want and need to be doing if they plan to protect their student from complications as they are transitioning to the college experience. You must deal with the high school transcript. You want to make sure that that transcript reflects the revised name and gender before 12th grade, if possible. Those of you with 12th graders know that most students are working on essays right now, and they will be applying in the month of November to many of their colleges. We want to make sure that these students are not submitting transcripts with their dead name and the wrong gender and all kinds of other problems that will just follow them into the college or university and create potential havoc. You want to communicate that. If the high school, if you run up against any resistance whatsoever, the colleges have become very savvy in these things. And the student, not the parent, I know we all want to, but it should be the student, should advocate by contacting the college admissions office. The person you're looking for is called the regional rep. The student should self-identify as a trans student and say that they would like to clarify their preferred pronouns, their preferred name, and gender for their teachers, professors, and for the records at the school. Now, in your high schools, keep in mind that transcripts are not always at the school level. Sometimes they're at the district level. So your responsibility is like you're kind of on a little information hunt, but you can get to this pretty quickly if you call your school's guidance office. It's a straight up question. Are the transcripts maintained on site here, or are they at the district office? If they're at the district office, all you're doing is getting the number for your school district. You're making that inquiry and you are advocating. Now it's you at the high school because your student is still a minor. So you are the one advocating for that. The student is the one doing the advocacy at the college level because presumably they are or are close to being legally 18, which changes the privacy law. There's a FERPA law, which is a Federal Education Privacy Rights Act. So there are things that the schools are trying to make sure they're following legal protocols when they're managing this. So at the college level, here's the phrase you need to remember, which is registrar. The registrar's office is where you're going to confirm that the correct information for the student, that includes correct name, gender, and pronouns, is on the files. Once your student accepts an offer of admission. And by the way, I recommend applying to no fewer than 8 schools. Most of my students that I mentor apply to 8 to 12 schools. So if they're applying to 8 to 12, once you accept an offer, you double check and you really make sure. You do not want them showing up to freshman orientation with, the wrong information on record. Once they are on campus, I have a support checklist for you as well. So here are some items. I'd like you to pass your eyes over those. I am just taking a peek at the question that came in while you do that. Oh, yay. Gwen, I love it. You've got a cool family. Okay. That wasn't a question. That was just like bragging rights. Non-binary kid, a trans son, a neurodivergent family. Rock on, I say to you. Rock on. Okay. So as you can see on this list, guys, the on-campus support checklist is really important. In order to make sure that students don't feel lost, especially in that first transitional semester as they are going into a college or university, knowing the details of the dorm, there is almost always a residence hall manager. So knowing who that is, usually the gender of that individual will match the gender of, if it is a single gender dorm, of those students. You want their name and their phone information. Doesn't mean you need to, become best friends and blow up their phone, but you want to have that information, because if you or a family member are having difficulty connecting with a student who might go into depression or crisis or some kind of situation, you want to have an adult who is responsible that you can get a hold of. So you want that information as well as the roommate, the name and the phone info. You're going to explicitly communicate to that registrar and that residence hall manager. If there are non-affirming family members that you prefer not to be invited to family picnics that they're doing on campus or events, you need to communicate that openly. Sometimes there are divorced parents. One parent is affirming, the other is not. Various situations. Communicate that to the school. By and large, what I have noticed is that they are very accommodating. They are on the side and the team of the student. And unless there is a compelling legal reason that they would have to include the non-affirming family member, they will not do so. But you have to communicate that. So that is a takeaway to this bullet you see. You want to notify the staff how to communicate with your family. So is it you and your partner? Is it like who are the people that they should be reaching out to if there is a situation? Hopefully not, right? But we don't really know until we're into that situation, which is why we put these guardrails, right? I'm talking right now about just kind of, we can't wrap them in bubble wrap. I always say, I wish I could wrap my kids in bubble wrap. We can't protect them in that way, but we can have some guardrails up. That's really what this webinar is about, is what we can do as parents to have those extra layers of support just in case, because we don't know until we get there. You do want to, I would recommend, if you haven't, and already most of you are in a Facebook group with a lot of us, so kudos on finding that community. There are in-person non-binary parent support groups and transgender parent support groups that might be really helpful, especially as your student goes off to college. That empty nest is something that I know about as well, and that's a big transition for parents. And being in community with other people who are navigating similar circumstances. And I'm not going to say that are navigating challenge, because this isn't all challenge, guys. So much of this is a hallelujah. So much of this is good stuff. This is, our kids are going to college. Think about it. It's like, can you believe when they were these little babies? And I mean, we all remember it, right? The tooth fairy under the pillow and all the birthdays, and, we just love them to pieces. And are you kidding me? We're talking about college for that little, oh, are you kidding me? It's like, I just get excited. I just think about Oshkosh overalls on Archie. Archie was cross-dressing before anybody knew what cross-dressing was, but I digress. So I think it's really fun to know that there are specific things that we can do. And here you see what some of these are. My last advice, strong advice, you do want to have a copy of the student handbook. Every student handbook I have ever seen has an anti-bullying and harassment section. These are policies and procedures. So what you want to know is if something is going down and my kiddo is getting bullied, like who is the person who is in charge of that, and what is the protocol that a parent can take advantage of to make sure that their student has what they need. Ta-da, here's your list. Screenshot. Here's what everybody came for. They're like, is she done talking yet? Can I just get the list of schools? I'm just trying to help you guys, but this is I know this is kind of one of the main events. This is exciting stuff. So these are Dr. Pamela Donnelly's recommended trans-friendly schools with strong student service supports. This is, in my professional estimation, the best of the best. Some of these are not selective, but really great, interesting schools. Some of these are moderately selective, depending on your student's academic profile. Some of these may be out of reach, but some may not. And I'm telling you right now, when you weave a compelling narrative thread in the essays that most of these schools are going to be seeing on the Common Application, they are excited to embrace the trans community when that trans student is applying with the correct proportion of that as part of an identity story, but also their critical thinking and their major of interest and what compels them about that and how they think about that and what they hope to do in the world. All of these pieces are part of the mentorship that I do, because I've found that it's kind of hard, even it's interesting as a mom myself, right? You can't be the sun and moon and stars to your own kid. It's really helpful for you to get to be mom or dad, right? And like when somebody else is there and, maybe it's not me, maybe it's like a counselor that or a teacher that or I don't know who you would bring in. But when you can just preserve your own role as parent, because keep in mind, by the time you're building a list, you're less than 12 months from that precious baby that you held and put those teeth under the pillow. You're about to say goodbye to them as they leave your house. It's a real time for fruition, right? And celebration. But you want to know that that your kid is safe. They are at a great academic school. These are all strong academic schools, that they are going to have student services if they need them, that they are going to have on campus and surrounding area community that can be supportive. And there's no guarantees, because there can always be one idiot anywhere in the world, right? But hopefully in these environments, certainly the reputation and the many, many students that I have aimed toward these schools and, have been honored to support them as they've gotten in and then transitioned onward to their master's degrees. And some of them are now doctors and lawyers. Like, they had to approach this with a real sense of what's possible. I don't want a kid, just because of their gender identity, to say, well, I could never apply to such and such a school. So for what that's worth, I hope it is worth something to you. Some students really enjoy the sense of community in fraternities and sororities. And there is a trend happening now where more and more of these are embracing trans students as they come onto campus. It is not a one size fits all. It really does depend on national leadership. The national leadership of these different chapters determines, what is the willingness that they have. But for some students who can feel a little isolated when they go on campus, this can be a viable way for some students to find like-minded people and be in a sorority or a frat house instead of in a dorm with multiple other students. Maybe that's a fit for you, student, maybe it's not, but I've given you a link there, and that is something that you can take a look at as well from Inside Higher Ed. So that's another, just one of the many criteria, right? Like if you're in Southern California, funny story, for most of my 20 years of my college educational consulting services, I have been based in Los Angeles. I'm currently based in Southern Nevada. I'm right outside Las Vegas in Henderson. When I was in Los Angeles, most of those students literally did not own a parka or a coat. And many of them were applying to Wisconsin and Vermont. And the conversation had to be, do you understand what winter is? Like, I want you to visit in the month of January and then get back to me and let me know if you still would like to go to Skidmore, because these kids get these ideas and then they don't really picture the reality of things like weather. All right, I am going to be sharing some additional resources. So I do want to make sure you know that those resources are going to be available. You can email a request to Cassie or to me. There's my email address. It's pamela@valleypreptutoring.us. You know, it's just important to me that you have access to everything. And there are many things that I have not included in the webinar that I would like you to be aware of. I do have, you know, some exciting solutions that I think are going to be relevant for a lot of you, which is why I'm going to take a moment toward the end of the webinar to share a quick video of sort of a digital solution that I created with my team that I think you might be curious about. And then at the end of that little presentation, we're going to go right into Q&A, and I'm just going to stay here until you're done asking questions. I see the chat is starting to get some more. That's awesome. So I'm looking forward to answering those. Here is where we are with Archie. So Archie completed his GED, and that was not a small task. He attended community college. He identified a career path in elder care and is now offering local services, making $17 to $20 an hour, helping elderly people in Henderson, Nevada, and absolutely loving doing this work. Can you believe that out of everything in the world, my son wants to be a mortician, wants to study mortuary science? I told you, plot twist. Am I right, moms and dads? Plot twist. Did not see that coming. You wouldn't have guessed. I would never have guessed that. So proud of him. So proud of everything that he has overcome to be at a point where he can be his gorgeous non-binary self without one apology to anybody. So there is that. Here's just a smidge about my services. This is what I do one-on-one. I help students identify the right fit major. I make sure it's non-impacted because otherwise they have a less likelihood of getting into many of the selective schools that they like. Build that list, help them with their course rigor. Ideally, they start with me in 9th or 10th grade. If they start in 11th or 12th, it's not the end of the world, but I can help them more the younger that I have them as my mentees. All of the coaching, deferrals, wait lists, that's a big thing that happened last year. We had a huge spike in deferrals and wait lists last year. And I've got a lot of templates and all of the things, for example, resumes and activities templates and how to build the list templates and all of that, is something that I convey to folks that work with me. I've got just a little 4-minute thing. Please bear with me because as Cassie invited me to do this, she was like, if there's something you want to share. And I was like, actually, I'd love to tell them about GATE, because it's like the cheapest way ever to solve this problem without even having to hire me, because everything I know is digital. So I'm going to quickly show you a little infomercial we made for GATE. I hope you enjoy this.
Freshman, sophomore, and a little bit junior in high school, you're thinking, oh gosh, how does getting into college work?
From a parent standpoint, one of the most daunting prospects of the college education is paying for the college education.
The scariest part of getting ready to apply to college is showing them my entire life, having them judge me.
What I've seen in my private practice, especially among college-bound teens, is a lot of confusion, anxiety, and pressure, especially with the high achievers. They just see the whole process as so overwhelming.
GATE had recommended that we apply to 10 to 12 colleges. So far, we've heard from 7 of the colleges, and all 7 have accepted her.
The video tutorials for me was a great thing to have. It was just having like that one-on-one experience.
it's drudgery for most of these kids to prepare for these exams. This is completely a different way, an innovative way of studying. It's like a game.
Test prep. Yeah, I mean, thinking about it stresses me out because of the long process that it takes to really feel confident about taking those tests.
For my son, to have complete access to not only the information he needed, but to organize his thinking and to know every move that he needed to make from this point of access blew me away.
I was just worried about getting into schools and where I was going to go. After all my hard work and studying and stuff like that, I got into 13 schools.
With searchable categories they control, our Gateway to College admissions support helps students sort, sift, and separate best fit colleges into lists they can then easily share on social media.
I recommend GATE because getting the advice that you need by talking to people who really know what they're talking about and using those resources, you just feel so confident.
I got organized. I learned what to do and what not to do. So then I just stuck with it, applied to my number one choice schools, and I got in.
He was getting C's and D's to straight A's. And now this process is in anyone's hands.
The scariest part of getting into college for me was probably having to complete all of these essays. By using GATE, I was able to make myself stand out in the college application process. I think GATE was really helpful in that respect.
Grades, applications, testing, essays. GATE, GATE, your online admissions tool for success.
Pamela has been featured on NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, Time Magazine, The New York Times, and more.
We reverse engineered GATE to give today's teens the results they need.
Why hand your kid a dense book stuffed with facts and figures, or make them sit through some boring weekend class that doesn't fit their on-the-go lifestyle? Now you can provide them with personalized learning tailored just for them. Access GATE on any digital device, perfect for busy teens and the parents who love them. Packed with fun quizzes, videos, games, and so much more. Go to gatecollegesystem.com right now and see for yourself all that GATE has to offer.
GATE is great because it gives them a map, the steps they need to take and all the different areas that they need to be able to focus on. And so they don't get caught up in just getting focused in on the testing or just their grades. Someone's sort of walking them through this and they're taking ownership.
But that's not all. For a limited time, we're also including information you need now to be sure you save as much as possible on all that expensive tuition. Full financial aid video trainings on merit aid, gift aid, institutional aid, and scholarships gives you crucial information that can make all the difference between affording a great college or having to settle for less.
I was really not expecting the scholarship, and it kind of took me a minute for it to sink in. It was like, I kind of had to read the sentence like several times to make sure.
Pamela's private students have paid tens of thousands of dollars each for her expertise and guidance. But now through this incredible offer, your student can enter the GATE.
It really helped me kind of just explain everything to me and like take everything one step at a time. And it just seemed a lot like less complicated than I thought it would be. And had it not been for GATE, I probably would not be where I am right now.
We have parent guides for GATE, and this has retailed at lots of conventions, conferences, schools where I've presented for $9.97. I want you to know that I love every fellow parent of a trans student. We're going to take 2/3 off of that. So this is going to be like a deeply discounted $333 out the door. You will have absolutely everything in GATE: grades, applications, testing, essays, plus your parent guides. And you can just literally, you can personally take this and be your kid's college counselor without even having to hire me. I'm a little embarrassed when I see that video of myself, but anyway, I got to get over it. It's what it is, people. It's what it is. Okay, so let's get to your questions. In case this helps you, I do want you to know I am offering, and this is, do it right now if you want this, because the first 6 people who send me a text message to that 702 number are going to receive a complimentary consultation. It's going to be 30 minutes long. I'll do it one-on-one with you in Zoom. You bring in your student. I will answer any question you want. It's your time. You get to ask anything, and I will just give you everything I can for 30 minutes. And that number is 702-551-4772. You can find me online at mentorship.pameladonnelly.com. And my tutoring agency, with all my brilliant tutors in all these subjects. Guys, I do not tutor AP calculus. Can I just say it? I'm not doing it, but I've got people who do it. So all of that kind of stuff, I got you covered at valleypreptutoring.us. And I just want to really give a shout out to Cassie. Let's hear it for Cassie. We're all clapping our hands for Cassie Brighter. Thank you so much for putting this together. I want to acknowledge Robert Powers, Carolyn Allison Kaplan, and Shannon Bergeron, who all helped contribute to the content that we've seen tonight. And now we are at Q&A time. I want to invite you, if you'd like to find me on LinkedIn, that's what my LinkedIn looks like. Pamela at valleypreptutoring.us is where you'll email me. Phone number is there. We can connect on LinkedIn. You have my office phone, all the good things. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and comments. I am going to begin with Lady Anu. Okay, looking at going into animation. So which states are safe? So Anu, are you with us? Do you want to jump in and have a quick combo on that?
Hi,
Okay.
yeah.
Hi, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to have you with us. So animation as a major, and which states are safe. Most of the really strong animation schools, for example, Cal Arts, are going to be in California. And California is a safe state. There are other strong animation programs and states. The map that I shared earlier in the webinar is where I would recommend that you look. And then you're just going to search under majors on those schools' websites to make sure that they do offer animation. Animation also, by the way, these days, some of that tends to be more graphic design and some of it is more pure animation. I will mention there's a wonderful nonprofit in Los Angeles called Exceptional Minds. If you look at exceptionalminds.org, they specialize in teaching students animation. They work with a lot of trans students, and these are usually older teenagers who are interested in going into animation, and they get once they're trained at Exceptional Minds, they go directly to Disney, Nickelodeon, and Cartoon Network. So I would recommend that you look into that. Is that helpful?
That's good. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome.
And,
my pleasure.
And initially we had some schools in Florida and Georgia, but while applying, she dropped it out of the list. Didn't want to apply in those places.
Yeah, oops, I still have my camera off, so sorry. Yeah, Florida, not my favorite state these days.
Right, yeah, right.
Nope, you be nice to my baby or nope. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. And I have heard that a lot. Families who are pivoting on their axis as they realize what's happening on the map. And where is my kid going to be safe? Like that is top of mind for any of us. We did not bring these kids this far for them to be harmed or bullied. So we have to do the work that we're doing tonight on this webinar. So kudos to you for being here. And thank you for your question. All right. So we have a question from HM. If kiddo info is wrong when at university, it can make their institution access difficult for any projects or research resources. It can impact communication with professors and classmates. Absolutely. Hayden, that is so true. Did you want to expand on that at all? Have you had a personal experience with that?
So currently, hi to all the folks on here. I'm a transmasc neurodiverse veteran, Air Force veteran. And what I do is basically it's like mentorship for modern masculinity with AFAB individuals. But I also do a lot of preparing to launch. And ironic that you mentioned Florida right before we have this conversation, because I've actually been working with a kiddo in that location for a couple of years, and they got a full ride, and now they don't know if they want to use it or not because it's a private school, and the private school certainly encroach on the rules with the restroom as well as their personal safety. But when it comes to university access, if you happen to have a student who is going into a research field or biomedical field or medical field in any specific facet, they are going to need to have long-term usage of the research materials that are available. And if that access is inappropriately assigned with the wrong name, they're going to have trouble throughout their research, whether it be at the bachelor's level, whether it be at the graduate level, or even at the PhD level, when their information that is going to open up to them with other permissions with other universities may not align with their identity.
Thank you.
That's a
Yeah.
big
Thank you. It's so important to remember that we're not just talking about the undergrad, right? Like this is a trajectory across time. Many of these students may go on to master's or doctoral level work. I myself just last year completed a PhD in midlife. It took me forever to get here. But when you are going through these processes, multiple names is going to be really problematic. It actually ties to the next question I see, which is, should high school transcript have legal and preferred name? When you want to legally change the name so that it is reflecting the preferred name. Having multiple names can get quite confusing. So the driver's license, and this very often means you're going to a courthouse and you're legally changing your name. But that is something that can be done and should be done in high school, concurrent with everything I said about talking to your school or your district to have it changed there as well. Some of them will say, have you done that legally? Because our policy is, unless you have legally changed it, we're not going to change it just because it's what you want, So each geographic location will have different moving parts on that, but do look into that. So, and get ahead of this. Those of you who are parents of some of those younger kids, especially, now is the time. Don't wait, right? The biggest mistake so many parents make is waiting. Please don't wait. So let's see, that's an important question. Are there schools that are dropping out of state costs for students that are evacuating from states where healthcare is no longer available? I am unaware of a specific response to that. I do see several people have asked. Hayden, thank you for your comment about Colorado. Y'all can look at that there. I want to say that what I would recommend, rather than framing the question that way, especially for those of you west of the Mississippi, take a look at WUE.org, WUE.org. That's the Western Undergraduate Exchange. If you're looking for in-state tuition in out-of-state schools, that is where I send most of the students that I work with, and you'd be amazed. They have a list of schools. Like, you can be in New Mexico and go to Idaho, or you can be in Oregon and go to California. It's like it's a real consortium, and the whole point of WUE, Western Undergraduate Exchange, is to give you in-state costs for out-of-state schools, but it is not trans-specific. So I do want to clarify that. I see a hand up. Todd, do you want to jump in before I continue?
Yeah, there's something kind of unique happening in Minnesota right now. One of the things that we did as an entire state, for those that don't know, is we are a gender affirming care sanctuary state right now. There's not many of us out there for states, but it is absolutely one of the best and safest states out there, except for the damn cold, which, yes, you could lose appendages at certain points in time. I live in an area where it gets down to -60 degrees, so I'm prepared. I bought electric boots last year, and electric gloves. But one of the things that is happening for people that are actually trying to escape some of those states where it's really completely unsafe for them to be, is that there are families that are signing up to basically have background checks done on them, to essentially be and I don't want to say like a foster family, but more of a, hey, we're going to open our doors to people that just need to get the hell out of Texas or Florida right now because they need to get someplace safe, especially if they're trying to continue their education, move someplace where they're going to be able to have the care they need and the safety they need. So
is there a resource you can share? Do you mind putting a link into the chat for us that folks could reference? I'd be happy to disseminate that. I do want to get to the other questions, but I think that sounds wonderful. And don't you love hearing that, you guys? It's so heartening to realize that there are people who are willing to do that. And yeah, Minnesota's chilly. I've spent some time in Minnesota. It gets chilly, but there's a right fit for every student. And some students, they want to, they want to do cross-country skiing and they want to be outside in the cold, like I'm down here where it was 115 in July. So, for some student, that's a nightmare, but for me, I like the hot. I don't like the cold. We all get to choose our preferences. Okay. Thank you, Robin Fishman. There's a group to put me in touch with a group of morticians. I am just thrilled with that. Please email me and let me know what that is and I'll pass it along. And it's amazing.
I will. Someone else commented their kid was interested in mortuary science too, so I'll message her.
I love it. Have we discovered a new niche? Is this a new?
But I'm weirdly part of a Facebook group of morticians, even though I have nothing to do with the death care industry. But they're awesome and supportive. So,
wow. Well, I think that there's something to be said for, I can only speak for Archie, a very empathic soul that my kiddo has. And this thing of elder care and then the mortuary piece, to me, I think it's something connected to that, like highly sensitive in a way that's very beautiful that the world needs more of, I think. Like I said, I see this as, it's a win. We just have to protect them while the world figures that out. I noticed Princeton is the only Ivy. I am a Harvard alum. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And Shelby, I meant no shade to Harvard at all. And apologies if that's how, and that's the danger, right, of putting together a list like that, because yes, there will be schools left off and people will say, why wasn't, I'm a graduate of Columbia. My undergrad was Columbia. Columbia wasn't on the list. New York is a great area, but the school doesn't have quite as firm a foothold for trans students specifically, not just LGBTQI plus, right? Like there's way more for queer people in a lot of campuses than there is specifically for trans issues, which is why it's Princeton. I'd be happy to have a sidebar about that, Shelby. Let's have a convo if you want to. And Hayden, you've got Shelby ready to volunteer to help out. You can see that in the chat. So everybody's making connections. That's awesome. GATE membership, thank you for the question, Annie, is good until graduation. So anytime from 9th through 12th grade, you come in, you're paying the $333 and that stays active all the way through. You do not ever have to pay again. People who aren't sure whether their son or daughter might be neurodivergent, educational testing is important. Now, I don't have a staff for that, but there's a woman who I really recommend who I've worked with in LA. So if anyone here is thinking, gosh, my son or daughter might be neurodivergent, but I'm not sure. Dr. Julie Morris, Morris, is the best of the best. She's affiliated at UCLA. She does all of the sort of battery of tests that can help a student get high school accommodations, whether that's a 504 or an IEP, and then also help that transition. And of course, she works very closely with my staff for our clients, the transition to college, so that whatever support has been in place in high school, it doesn't follow them to college, by the way. It's not automatic. So there's an entire procedure for that, but getting that on the high school level and having that supporting the student, in 9, 10, 11th grade, 12th grade, is an important precursor before you start looking for student services at colleges who are going to say, well, how do we know you need this? You did fine in high school without it, so you want to consider whether you want to have that in place. So Julie Morris is the bomb. I love her. She's done the videos that are on my YouTube channel that are about learning differences and schools that are great for learning differences. It's not really a trans series of videos per se, but if that's you, my YouTube channel is called College Admissions Simplified. We certainly welcome you to, get on there and subscribe. We've got almost 100 videos at this point of my staff and I that have posted content to specifically help parents get their teens to and through the college admissions process without losing their minds and without going broke. I'm going to take this last question before I close this out. Annie, thank you for your question. I went to a small private liberal arts school. Think that might be a great learning environment for my science-loving son, given the close contact with faculty and opportunities to do research as an undergrad. Can you recommend a few key questions it would be good to ask to help determine whether a smaller school is trans friendly or supportive? Yeah, I love SLAC, small liberal arts colleges. Colleges that change lives is a website I'll mention, and then I'll answer your question. So ctcl.org is a resource for anyone who is interested in looking into liberal arts options. Colleges that change lives are all small, bordering on small to the smaller end of medium. So 1,000 students to maybe 3,000 to 5,000 at the most, various geographic locations. And so I think that it's a very helpful thing to look at that. Key questions it would be good to ask to help determine. So I would be asking questions like, what percentage of last year's incoming class were not just LGBTQ, but T, right? What percentage admitted were trans? Please describe to me one or more active student organizations on campus that is trans inclusive, and how many students are participating in that as of last year. So you're really looking to get a sense of size and impact of the trans community there. It's not just, is there an organization, but how active is it, and how actively are they looking to support and promote the kids who are from that. I really appreciate these questions. You guys are amazing. I really want to say thanks again. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording at this time.